Shlach lecha noshim v'yasuru es eretz Canaan. This week, the Parsha sending meraglim to go into Eretz Canaan and to see the place, see the people, see what's happening, so that Klal Yisrael can conquer the country that was promised to the forefathers. And so there are 7 nations: Aknani, Achiti, Amori, Aprizi, Achivi, Avisi, Agirgoshi, and they represent the 7 midos when they are not being used in order to build the spiritual, when they're not being used in order to serve the ultimate purpose. And so Klal Yisrael wants to go into Eretz Yisrael, meaning they want to change the attributes to become holy, to serve the ultimate purpose, to serve the unity. And then the land becomes Eretz Yisrael. Eretz Yisrael represents a person living in this world and feeling, having the experience that everything that is happening to him was custom designed, that he's being catered to. That's when it's called Eretz Yisrael. Eretz Yisrael means a land that belongs to Yisrael, a land that belongs to the person that's experiencing it. And on the individual level, this refers to the body. The body is called Eretz, the body is called the land. The land where the spirit gets to reside is the physical portion created from the 4 elements that create that biological machine that we carry around with us all day. And that Eretz can be many different things to us. Each one of us has a very different relationship with that Eretz. And that relationship creates the underlying quality of our lives. How we interpret events has more to do with our bodies than with anything else. And that's why each one of us, as we experience similar events, we have very different reactions, very different experiences, because we're experiencing it from within a very different body, a body that's carrying with it a different story, a different history, a different truth. So this Eretz is affected by the 7 attributes. It can be an Eretz Canaan. Eretz Canaan means a land that is being serviced. The spirit is the slave of his own land. And that's why Canaan was cursed. That Eved Avodim Yeh Le'echov, that Canaan from Chom represents slavery, and the word itself means likana. So it's Eretz that's machnia. The person living in that land is servicing the land. It has no time for himself. There's no time for the spirit. And to turn the attributes, to change the midos, means that now it's going to be Eretz Yisrael. What is Yisrael? Ki sarisem elehim v'manoshem v'tuchol. You have ownership over the body. You have the power to rule it. That's Eretz Yisrael. It works for you. How do you make the body work for the spirit? How do you convince the body to work for the spirit? Why would the body want to do that? The body is physical. And the answer is because the body gets created by the spirit. When we eat, we're feeding the spirit. We're giving energy to the spirit. The spirit can now think and feel with the energy received from the food. Now, based on those thoughts, based on those feelings, it's going to create the biological tissue. It's going to create the organs. So the organs are going to have your very attributes. The way that you behave, that's the way your organs behave. That's the reason why you behave this way. That's the reason why you continue to behave this way, is because this is how your organs are behaving. So now this is how you behave. But also, internally, this is how your organs are behaving between themselves. This is how your organs are behaving with the limbs. This is how your organs are behaving with the blood. And so you're getting an experience that is customized to your very spirit, to your very thoughts, and to your very emotions. And that's why the attributes will decide if you're living in Eretz Canaan or if you're living in Eretz Yisrael. If the attributes are wrong, then the spirit will have to slave to the body. It will have no choice. The body will make it so. Because the midas within the organs, the attributes within the organs, will be of such a nature that they will demand the attention of the spirit constantly. But by turning the midas into pure kedusha, into pure holiness, which means that they are aligned with their original nature, then the spirit resides within the body as a sar, as a adon, as a master, as a ruler. Because all the organs within the body are working with those attributes, are working with the spirit of holiness, with the spirit of purity, with the spirit of kindness. And so the parsha starts, Shlach lecha anoshim v'yasir es Canaan. The 12 tribes, like we've learned the Sefer Yetzira, they represent 12 organs. So now we're taking from each tribe, we're taking one person, and they're going to go and try to understand, how are my organs interacting now? Where's my standing? I know I'm in Eretz Canaan, but where am I going wrong? Where are my issues? And how do we know? Because everything ends up in thought, everything ends up in speech. Whatever these organs are doing are going to affect how we experience life. So if we want to know how our organs are doing, just look at the life you're living and you'll see. This is their production. What are they producing? So now we start some quality control. Some things maybe are not as good as we'd like. Maybe some things can be better. So Shlach lecha anoshim, you're sending in the tribes, and they're going to try to understand what is going on in Eretz Canaan, and how are we going to conquer it so that it becomes Eretz Yisrael. And 10 of them go into Eretz Yisrael, and they lose their way. They lose their purpose. So by the time they come back, they don't even believe that Eretz Canaan can ever be Eretz Yisrael. They've lost their faith. But 2 tribes, Yehuda and Yosef, Kalev ben Yefune and Yeshua ben Nun, they come back and they have a message of triumph. We can do this. This is possible. And this tells us about Mashiach. This tells us about the end, where the midas are going to have to be worked on. The midas are going to have to be changed. So there's a Mashiach ben David and Mashiach ben Yosef. These 2 tribes are the tribes that say that this is possible, this conversion can happen. All the other tribes, they see the galus, they see what's involved in the negativity, in the heaviness, in the depth of the trauma, and the anger, and the pain that's so real, that's so palpable, that's so strongly affecting people's lives, and they say, this cannot be done. This is something that is beyond the human capacity to overcome. But these 2 tribes, they see something else. They see a possibility. And Yehuda, which represents the heart, represents the voice, the coil that comes from the heart. That's why the name Yehuda is Apam Oides Hashem, that I'll give thanks, I'll be grateful. The power of speech, the power of the human word, can overcome all the difficulties within our attributes. Everything that's wrong within our attributes can be fixed with the power of speech, because with the power of speech it was ruined in the first place. And so if we change how our heart is designed, if we change the attributes within how we behave, within how we act, it doesn't simply change how other people are going to experience us. It changes the very inner relationship that our spirit has with our body. It changes the very relationship that our organs have with each other. It makes everything softer, it makes everything easier, because these are all angels. Angels means that they're programmable. They're not fixed. Nothing over here is fixed. Everything is imagined, everything is interpreted, everything can be tampered with, everything is different in each one of us, everything is different every year of our lives, every day of our lives, every second of our lives. We're not fixed, nothing is fixed. But because our organs keep repeating the same attributes, we keep staying stuck in a similar cycle, and that's why we think things are fixed. We think that life can only be this way, life can only be that way. But things are not fixed. We made them fixed. And as we become different, as we change our attributes, things that we thought are going to be a certain way for the rest of eternity can suddenly change in a heartbeat. In the blink of an eye, because life will interact with us, how we interact with it. Everything is happening live. Everything is happening in a real way. There's a real math to every single event that happened in our lives. There's a real reason. We don't understand that language yet, it's beyond us, but it doesn't make it unreal. It's there. And how do we know it's there? Because the events happen based on those forces, based on those truths, based on the real things that make life be the way that it is. And so we tap into that truth, we tap into that reality in order to be able to correct something that's inherently wrong right now within our experience. And it's so wrong that most think that it can't be fixed. Most think that humanity has gone so far that how are you going to straighten them out? How are you going to fix their attributes when they're so angry at each other, when they're so confused about their experience, when they're not even enjoying it anymore? When it's become all about complaining and all about blaming, how are we going to fix a civilization? How are we going to fix a society so that it can appreciate life, so that it can be grateful for every breath, so that it can live an experience of kol haneshama tahalel ka, that on every breath the person should be grateful that he has existence? And the answer is, it's the power of speech, it's the heart. The heart can be changed from one extreme to the other. And not only that, the heart's waiting to be changed. It was designed for this. It was created to be soft and to be gentle and to be sensitive. It's just the circumstances, the environment that have caused us to close up, that have caused us to feel that if we're going to feel, if we're going to get too involved, if we're going to be emotionally connected, then it's just going to be too painful. So the speech, the power of speech, the koach of Yehuda, can change how our heart interacts with life. And the main power of speech is that it comes from the heart. That's what makes it powerful. That's why dvarim hayotzim min halev nichnasim min halev. If they leave a heart, then the heart that receives it knows, it gets the signature of the human heart, and it allows it in. And if there's no human heart behind it, then it's kishuv, then it's manipulation, then it's not real, then it's dangerous. And so the Meraglim go into Eretz Yisrael, the Meraglim go into the reality that is, and they come back with a message. It's impossible, it's not happening. But what's the alternative? What was Klal Yisrael up against? What did they have in order to console themselves? Okay, we're not going to go into Eretz Yisrael. Where are we going to go? They didn't have any alternative. They didn't have any place to go. They were in the desert. And so the Meraglim, they didn't even have a purpose for the way that they were interacting with the situation. They didn't have any practical advice of where would we go if we don't go into Eretz Yisrael. And so therefore, there was no message there that could be followed. There was no truth. There was no reality to their message. They come back and they say, this is how we're going to go because this is what needs to happen now. It doesn't have to make sense to us. Nothing that happened previously made any sense. But this is the truth because this is where our destiny is leading us. And so this is the power that we have to overcome. When it comes to overcoming negative attributes, it's not a choice. We might have a difficult time, we might not know how to go about it, but it's not a choice. We have no choice. We were placed in a predicament where we have to overcome our negative attributes or we're just going to continue suffering from them over and over and over again. They're not going to get tired. If we don't get rid of them, they're going to keep on beating us up. So this is something that there's only one way to go. There's only one way to get out of this. And that's to find peace beneath everything, to be able to come back to a truth that is so solid, that is so real, that you can remember it regardless of the circumstances. So you're always going to know what's behind you, what's powering you. And that can only come through authenticity, for a person to really be authentic with their own heart, to open up their own heart and allow themselves to face whatever is inside, whatever is really going on. Because that's the only place where we're going to find the truth. That's the only place where that record is being kept. So unless our heart opens up, nobody else can tell us our truth. Nobody else can tell us what needs to happen. Nobody else can heal us. All the healing can only happen if we allow ourselves to open our hearts, if we allow ourselves to find something real, if we allow ourselves to connect to something true. And so for each one of us, we need access to Eretz Yisrael because we're here, because we're already created, we're already in our body, we already need to know how to run it, we need to know how to be. It's not a choice. And the more we can commit to that, the more we can realize its importance, the more automatically our nefesh will change for us. The more we'll be able to tap into more deep levels of power that are available within us, because it's all in our imagination. The whole story that we have that's not reality, we made it up. It just resides in our imagination. And therefore, the more we are serious, the more we allow ourselves to negotiate our way out of that imagined story, the more easily it will go. So it requires a certain authenticity that a person realizes it's important, realizes what it really means. We can't even understand. We're not big enough to understand what it really means. But we can have a glimpse. We can understand that it's final. Everything is final. Everything that happens is the way that it is. And that's all. That's all that it is. And that's enough. It's more than enough. But imagine what it could be. And then as you go and you become that, whatever you imagine, then you can imagine again, because it's really unlimited. That's really the nature of life. Whatever limits we think it has, it's because we gave it those limits. Because there are so many dimensions we haven't even touched. There's so many layers of quiet that we don't even know exist. Because we've never heard that quiet. That's just been humming in the background for thousands of years. Nobody's ever thought otherwise. And so this is waiting for us to discover. Life is waiting for us so that we discover it. And that's the purpose of it. That's when it rejoices. That's when the angels find joy, is when humanity can discover, when humanity can realize, when humanity can become more. Because there's nothing else. There's really nothing. There's no force that has any interest in anything else. All the forces only have an interest in making this succeed, because this is existence. All that exist want existence to exist. All that are positive to existence are good and kind to us. All that are not don't exist. And so the illusion that we have, like we're fighting something, like we're up against something, that's something that we recreate for ourselves through our own organs, through our own thoughts, through the conflicts that happen because of our own midas, our own attributes of not getting along with ourselves. So the more we become aware, the more we can get along with ourselves, everything will fall into place. Everything is fine. Everything was fine. Everything will always be fine. That's just the nature of life. Ask the oxygen that's right next to you. He'll tell you everything's fine. Never had a problem. It's just our processing that creates problems. We think and we feel and we understand and we create problems for ourselves. So we have to come back, we have to learn from the simple. We have to learn from those parts of life that are not so complex, how to stay simple, how to keep it simple. And then we'll all be able to keep it so simple that it's going to be Hashem Echad Ishma Echad.
Did these midos that the 7 nations represent, they kind of like, they accrued in the mindset and the heart set of the what do you call them? People that spent 40 years in the desert?
Right. So these people, they had already such a deep impression from this story that they couldn't overcome it any longer. So in order to go into Eretz Yisrael and to do what they needed to do, they couldn't have any doubt. It had to be absolute commitment. And this we see also in the wars, that before the war they would go and they would have different things, like a person who was newly married or somebody who bought a house, or different things where they would leave the war. Or in general, if somebody had any doubts, somebody had any fear, had a softness in the heart, then they would ask them to leave, because it had to be absolute commitment. So after the Meraglim, when Klal Yisrael was crying, they lost their commitment, they lost their access to that purity, that single mindset of dedication that is required to enter this spiritual level. And so they couldn't any longer do it. It couldn't happen to them any longer. So the rest of the 40 years they were learning Torah, and all Torah comes back to the midas, because the vessel to receive the light is the proper midas, and the light itself is the Torah, is the mitzvahs. So first there needs to be a vessel, otherwise the Torah cannot really be appropriate. That's why it says if somebody learns Torah without a heart, so then he doesn't have the impact. It's like he was wasting his time. It's not really affecting his personality. It's not changing him from within. So those 40 years, they were studying to understand wisdom, and all wisdom keeps purifying the midas. Wisdom helps the midas, and the midas, with the light creates, it perfects the vessel, and then the vessel can retain more light. Right. Yeah, so darkness, the concept of darkness is that we don't see the light. But there is never a darkness where there is no light. If there was pure darkness, then we wouldn't see anything, we wouldn't exist. So existence itself is light. The fact that we're perceiving is light. Even if we're in our worst mood, we're still alive, our organs are functioning, we still manage to think. It's just that the result of that thought is not pleasant. So it's not real darkness, it's perceived as darkness. So when we can become clear enough in our perception to understand this, even in the times when we don't have access to feeling it, then we'll know not to act out those dark moments, but there won't be darkness anymore. It's just going to be a different shade of light. There's light that shines, and there's light that purifies. But they're all different levels of light.
We studied a little bit. There's a Israeli rabbi in California somewhere that gives all kinds of shurim in English about mazalot. And I listened about my mazal, which is Aquarius, or Dli, and I was surprised to find out that about 95% that he said was, wow, this is me. So
Okay.
we are trying to figure out who we are. What is really the rule of this, the mazalot? So if I'm determined by the mazal, are you here?
Yeah, I'm listening.
Okay. Is that me? And what should be my relationship be to this?
So the mazal is a very basic. It's not basic, obviously. It's very.
Part of our truth, or should we work on this?
The mazal is a language of the cosmos. So the cosmos creates the flavor of each one of us, and that's based on the elements that are creating us. We get created piece by piece by certain intelligence that allows us to grow, and it receives influence from the stars, from the planets, and all this affects our evolution. So the whole system that was created of the cosmos was to create these beings that we are, the human beings, so that we can interact with life. And so when we get created, there's a certain nature that's inherent in the way that we were created. We have certain balances or imbalances of the different elements that are going into creating a human being. And that is what becomes the underlying structure of our personality, of what we're going to use to interact with the environment. So this, if somebody understood this language, which is obviously a very deep language, just like a human personality is very deep. So if somebody understood this language appropriately, then he could have an idea about the behaviors of the individual based on the time of birth. But it's very hard really to know, even if somebody can say some pointers of what it means to be in a certain mazal, or to have a certain chart, or have a certain combination of mazalot. It's not all there is to it, and sometimes by saying it, then we define it, and then it becomes that way because we believe in it, not really because that was the original way that it was supposed to play out. So when we give things definition, we're also limiting the definition. And that's why it was mostly avoided. The wisdom was studied, but to try to determine the personality or the behaviors has downsides to it, has certain risks involved with it. Because whatever we record, whatever we imagine, whatever we believe, has a very deep impact on how we're going to experience.
So you're saying it's part of our truth, but we should not take it...
It's a truth, it's a reality of how nature works, but it's not the truth that the Torah is requiring of us to understand. It's part of the structure of how life works, but the Torah was built on creating the awareness of the yichud, of the unity. And the unity means that we're going to a place that is above and beyond all the different intricacies of our nature, and we just want to do what's good and what's right for each situation in accordance with the intelligence that we receive in that situation. So this doesn't require a math, it doesn't require knowing something or knowing who you are or how you were created. You just rely on whoever created it to have created it right, and now you use it. Now you actually allow that to guide you in your life. So the intelligence that you have, all the thoughts that you have, already take into account the astrology of when you were born, obviously. Otherwise, it wouldn't know what to think. So you don't have to worry about that. That math has already been done. Now you have to interpret just what you get as a result and try to interact with the environment, interact with the circumstances to make it right, to make it work.
I want to ask a question. I think it was something you said during the meditation, but it was about existence and how existence is existence alone is the greatest gift, or whatever. I don't know how you worded it, but like for someone, let's say whatever, an extreme example, someone who goes through a life of suffering,
Yes.
just tell me why for them existence is the greatest gift.
Because existence is not about the life that you have in your body. Existence is the fact that you're going to exist for eternity. So even if you're off to a rough start, we trust the one that designed this to make it up to that spirit, because the spirit is going to come back to its realization that it is source. So that means source is going to have to appease that spirit, is going to have to be mefayes that spirit for whatever it went through, and it's not only going to be appeasing it for not being in a natural state of no pain and no pleasure. It's going to appease it for going out of source, which is infinite pleasure, and going into that state of pain. So we can't even imagine what's going to be taking place when that spirit finally comes back to its realization of who it is. It's beyond, because that pain drew it so far into the darkness, it pulled it so far away from source, that as it flies back to source, it's flying faster than any of the others. It's just going at a crazy speed. The realizations are something that we can't even realize. So the truth is that we are from a place that is pure good, that is pure bliss, that is pure holiness. And so there is no other place for us to go other than back there. There's nothing else. Nothing else exists. So regardless of what it's going to take for us to go through and realize that, the price is going to be tiny compared to what we're going to get. It doesn't even make a difference once it's over. While it's here, it makes a difference because it's difficult. But once it's over, it won't make a difference. To the extent it was difficult, to that extent, it's so much better now.